Alright, it's another Feder review. Off we go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the HEMA Show. I, like always, am your host Stuart, and this is edited by my long-suffering mate Andy. Say hi, Andy. Good on you. If any of you are curious why Andy hasn't left yet, it's because I've got him locked in the basement. He has no choice. Wahaha. Excellent. So, following on, we are doing another Feder review. This is coming on from the fourth Feder review. Or was it the third? But this is the Sigi Gothic. This is included in our Feder's Buyer's Guide. We're starting to get to the premium price range now. So, what do we get for that? So, as I said, this is the Sigi Gothic. It is possibly the prettiest Feder I've ever seen. It is lush. Now, this is another man's sword that I'm groping at the moment. So I do have to be a little respectful with it, but I have fought with it. So all the information should be fairly accurate, or my opinion at least is slightly informed. So this is the Sigi Gothic. The Sigi Gothic retails at a staggering €400 plus import. So what do you get for €400? Well, you get 135 centimeters of the prettiest sword you can buy. This thing always reminds me of Gondor from Lord of the Rings. I don't know why. I think it's this shield here. It just seems very Gondorian. I absolutely love it. 135 centimeters long in total. It has a blade length of 101 centimeters, so it is a long blade. Or slightly longer than average. You're averaging about a metre. You might be thinking that, yeah, 1 centimetre, well done, dickhead. That is longer than 1 metre, but really it's not that much. But you'd be surprised at how much a centimetre's difference can make.
That's what she said!
In a fight. Especially at high end as well. A centimetre is a huge, huge difference. So that 101 centimetre blade really makes a big difference once you are used to it. The grip is 34 centimeters long, so it's a nice long grip. It's definitely a pommel grabber as a weapon, which isn't a bad thing, but it is just ever so slightly on the short. You could do with maybe 1 more centimeter down here, just to boop it out a little bit. But as it stands, it's absolutely lovely. It handles really well. This is a second intention beast. It's a little floppy on the first intention. If you're a thruster, if you're a tip worker, be aware of that flop because it will wobble around as you attack in. So just be careful. I couldn't find any information online about the steel that it's made out of. If I can post-record, I'll see if I can pin it in the comments below. If you can't see it in the comments below, it's probably because I haven't been asked or couldn't find it. One of the two, you pick. So it is a lovely mover of a blade. It really likes to work itself around, and it loves second intention. Sorry about my poor technique, but I'm really trying not to batter the mic. Andy keeps giving me shit for that. Gripe that I do have is the tip. It is not a rolled tip, so it will require some sort of additional blunt on the end of it, which again will just give it that little bit more wobble. Grand scheme of things, actually not too much to worry about, but something to consider if you are very into the aesthetics of the sword. The proportions are really, really, really nice. It handles really, really nice. It feels like it's a lot shorter than it actually is, which is weird. You kind of want a nice long blade, but what it means is it just rapidly transports from one position to another. If you are a second intention fighter, throwing a false, moving around and hitting in an opening line, this is your dream sword. It is lovely, but you do pay for it. Really nice crossguard on this. The quillon is nice and long, and it hasn't got any side rings, so you can thumb the blade. I generally don't. I get too distracted during a fight, so that's not really the be all and end all for me, but if you do like to thumb the blade, it's absolutely fine. The pommel is really heavy. Pommel is massively heavy, and that is a good thing. That is why the blade moves so much. That is why the blade moves as much as it does, because all the weight is here. So there's so much weight here, it really pulls the weight back into the blade. I mean, it is so far back. I mean, I'm halfway down the shield here, and the tip is still rising. I don't want to drop the sword because it's not mine. So I'm halfway down the shield and the tip is still rising, still about there. So about where my finger is. It's absolutely crazy. What that means is it just makes it rapid. The weight has shifted really far down the blade here. So the tip is just weightless when you move it around. It's absolutely lovely. One of the main gripes I had about the Kingston is that you're fighting the inertia on the blade. This is the polar opposite. You move it around and it snaps to attention. It just moves and it will just absolutely stay where you want the blade to stay. It is gorgeous. It's really, really nice. I really like it. The weight is 1,580 grams, so it is a heavy blade, but it really doesn't feel like it's that heavy. It is actually an incredibly well engineered blade. It's just nice. Everything about it is nice, but that being said, for the price, it bloody well should be. It bloody well should be a nice blade for 400 sodding pounds. That is more than my first car. So yeah, absolutely. The Sigi Gothic, a lovely, lovely, lovely bit of kit, but my God, do you pay for it? Who is it for, the Sigi Gothic? Well, unlike the Reginier, who is for everyone, the Reginier is a one blade fits all kind of thing. This is definitely, you need to know that this blade is for you. It does work the tip, it will work on the thrusts, it will work first intention, but this is really for someone who likes to set the fight up. This is for a layered fighter. Somebody who likes to prime them with a false or a feint, disengage, crump out, cut over, whatever, come round and work their way in. You will find that you will fight this blade a little bit if you are lunging for that single intention hit, because there is so much movement on the blade. It's just another factor that you need to focus on. So if you are a first intention fighter, not the blade for you. But if you like to layer your fights, this is your beast. Lovely on the parry, really nice on the parry, but this is the downside of this shield. You take the parry, you've got the parry, you lose the parry, you regain it. Not the end of the world. It's not like the Kingston where it goes, whoop, see ya. It's just here, and it just feels a little odd. You take the parry and you feel this kind of slide, jump, slide. So it goes here, boop, boop, and it just gets in there. So just be aware, if you are a parry heavy fighter, then just be aware that this is going to feel weird when you first get used to it. If you like to fight Talhofer, this is going to be a really jarring experience for you getting used to it. So just be aware. This really, really, really likes you to seize control of the match. This isn't a reactionary sword at all. So the main difference, or the main step up at least, is from the previous entry, which is the Reginier, is that you kind of need to know what you're doing with this sword. This is almost second, third sword territory. You know what you like, and if this is exactly what you like, that's when you get this. Don't think, ah, sweet, yeah, I got a decent job with a bunch of money, that looks pretty, I'll buy one. Get one once you know that it's right for you. Unless you want it just as a wall hanger, then, you know, that's kind of sad to see a sword unused, but that's fine. But know your sword when you buy this, and know that this is for you, because it is a lot of money to invest in a sword and for you to not be completely happy with it when you're using it. So I want to have a shout out to someone. This is a scabbard made for this. This is made by Very Noise Crafts by a chap called Tim. Andy, can you please link or have a picture of Timo's Instagram, please, just so people can see. And this is custom made for this, and this is really, really nice. For such a nice sword, you do want to keep it absolutely pristine. And this is a lovely little scabbard that is made specifically for this sword. It's full length, comes wrapped in leather, optional decoration on it. And one thing that I really like is a little popper. So if you grab your bag the wrong end, which I'm always bloody doing and sending my kit all over the place, at least this stays in here. And the weather we have been having recently, the heat we have been having, it has been nice to keep the sun off of the flipping blade when I've been driving from clubs to clubs to clubs. So you're not getting into a club with a hot blade or one that's going to be slightly softer if you're taking lunges in. So that's really nice. So just a quick shout out to Tim at Very Nice Crafts for making this. For all the Feder homemade, homebrew scabbards I've seen, this is definitely one of the higher quality ones. So please do check Tim out. His stuff is really nice and he does more than scabbards as well, but I can always recommend his stuff for scabbards. Look at that, plug in another guy in the verse. Ain't we nice? So, that's the Sigi. Now, on to our questions. So today's question comes from someone whose name was a series of letters and numbers and it just made absolutely no sense. So I'm just going to call you Percy. So Percy asks, what makes HEMA HEMA? Now this question stood out for me, kind of existentially, kind of hard to answer, but it was an interesting one because it's probably a question that people have asked themselves. What does make HEMA HEMA? Why are some weapons HEMA? Why are some weapons not HEMA? Why are some traditions HEMA? Why are some not? Where do we draw the line? Why don't we include fencing? All this kind of stuff. And this, before I go any deeper, I'm going to say is subjective. This is not objective at all. This is just my opinion. My opinion varies from quite a few people's because I'm a coach. So my outcome is slightly different to the individual fighters. If you're an individual fighter, you might want something more informative, for example, so then what you consider HEMA would be slightly more informative, whereas as a coach, what I consider HEMA might be slightly different. So just from a coach's point of view, this one. Honestly, and this might be a bit of a frustrating answer for you, Percy, or not Percy, HEMA is what your attitude is towards it, essentially. I know it's a tricky answer, but basically, if you are bringing a martial aspect to it and you're training properly and you're wanting to learn and get better and actually implement what you're learning, in my opinion, that is HEMA. This kind of links back to the sword and board question I had for Rob the Axeman as to why Heater Shield isn't in HEMA, and do I class it as HEMA? Yes, I do. You can, in my opinion, you can take any, as long as it's historically relevant and mostly European, hence the E in HEMA. It doesn't always have to be. I've gone on record as saying I like Khopesh, you know. But as long as it loosely fits those criteria and you train with it properly and you take it seriously and you want to get better and you think about the outcomes, you think about the fights, and you train it with a martial aspect, that's kind of what makes it HEMA. I know some people disagree with that, and it's about the sources. If there are sources written down for it, if there are texts on it, that's what HEMA is. I think that's too much to the letter rather than the spirit of the law, if that makes sense. For me, it's much more what you bring to the weapon system that makes it HEMA, rather than there is a HEMA book on it. At that point, I mean, I think it was Tebow that has rapier versus musket, so let's have a rapier v musket competition, surely, by that logic. Or rapier versus cavalry that he never finished. I wonder why. So, you know, if you're going too strict by the books, then you will go down a rabbit hole. And then by that logic, I mean, fencing is historical. I've got fencing books up there. Why isn't that HEMA? You know, so if you go, in my opinion, if you start looking at it too much like that, then it becomes really weird where things are and aren't HEMA. So to answer you, Percy, mate, it's what you bring to it. If you do it properly, then that's HEMA. And you know what? Anyone tells you different, time to sod off. You know, you're having fun, you're taking it properly, you're not hurting anyone. Sod 'em. Anyway, time to go. Bye. I've got a light right here. And one day it's going to fucking kill me with the sword.